wanted to share an excerpt of a video that I watched on YouTube on a channel called Blair White. She's a trans woman. She's interviewing a trans man, and they're talking about transgender children and the contagion aspect of it, the political aspect of it, and how a lot of these children are really being led into a direction that isn't going to serve them in the long term. I know a lot of people go through this in their families nowadays. I personally know of a couple people who have mentioned to me that they know someone whose child is talking about transitioning. And so I wanted to share this because this person, Blair White, she has a lot of good content on her channel, and she seems very upfront and honest about the entire process. This could be a great resource for perhaps kids who are very confused, or the parents of those kids who are confused, to make sure they don't make permanent, irreversible decisions. So I wanted to share this with you.
It's so scary to see what I perceive to be a lot of youth that are not trans
That's right.
getting caught up in the trans space.
I see it every day. Do you know kids write me every day? And when I say kids, I say 20, because that's a child to me.
Yeah.
Who say, oh my God, Buck, I think I made the wrong choice and I think I need to get out. I'm like, get out of it. Go and de-trans right now. You're only 4 months on
this
hormones.
second.
Do it.
This
Stop.
second.
I encourage all of them who say that to me because I believe that there really are. And I don't want them to get 2 years into hormones. And look at me. Look at me.
It does real things. It does real things to your body.
I cannot detransition
Yeah.
and go back to looking like
Yeah.
a woman. I'll be the ugliest woman. I'll be working in the circus as the bearded lady. It's real. Like, let's just be real here. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, and let's also talk about detransitioners. We're not a thing.
That's right.
Even like 6 years ago when I transitioned.
Not a thing.
Not a thing.
Nope.
And if they were a thing, it was like one person over here, one person over
Yep,
here.
yep.
And the way I kind of even looked at them was like, oh, that's tragic, but that's super rare. I'm not even going to think about it too much. And now you have just tens of thousands of kids online. And it's like, okay, so clearly there's a problem here. And one of the things that I think the trans community suffers from is, for all the talk about how conservatives and right-wing people live in the past, I think to a large extent leftists and trans people live in the past as well.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're still going by these old statistics about how 0.1% of trans people detransition. Okay, let's catch up to 2022, where there's Reddit groups of 20,000 plus,
Or
right?
no, 28,000 now.
Right. Let's cut up to 2022, where the safeguards to transition. We talked about this yesterday.
That's right.
We talked so much off camera. When you transitioned, which was how many years ago?
30 years ago this month.
30 years ago,
Yeah.
and you told me about so many safeguards that there were to ensure that this was not going to be something that you regret.
That's right.
And go figure, there were not a lot of detransitioners back
That's
then.
right.
For me, flash forward to 2015 when I transitioned. Wow, years are going by.
Wow.
There was zero safeguards.
That's right.
I walked in to a doctor's office and 20 minutes later walked out with a prescription for estrogen and testosterone blockers.
But wait, where was your mental health care?
They didn't require it.
What?
No.
This
Same
is-
with my surgeries. They didn't.
Same with your surgeries. Well, I had to go through such, which they call gatekeeping, and I changed it to safekeeping. I really feel like
That's
it's
so good.
safekeeping.
Yes,
It is
yes,
not gatekeeping because I want you to go through this. I want you to transition if that's your space. What I don't want you to do is get into a space where you're like, oh my God, I just made a huge mistake. I cut my breasts off. I got a hysterectomy. I'm 20 years old. My sex drive is null and void. Like, now how are you going to have a great life? So this is what I think we're not talking about. There is no rush. There actually is no rush. I didn't transition until my late 20s, right? Or 30, I think
Yeah,
it
I
was.
was 20.
Like, it's ridiculous that people are in such a rush to transition. This is a life-changing space we're talking about. We're not talking about putting on a jacket and a hat.
And so much of it is permanent. People don't
Permanent.
get it. Like, I cannot have biological children of my own. I do not
right.
have that DNA anymore.
Nope.
So these kids transition at 12 and 13, which, first of all, we were talking about this also off camera, which is like so many trans adults who then go to get the surgery to go to get a vagina,
Ooh.
they don't have the adequate starting point, let's just say, to create that vagina because they never actually developed
That's right.
their starting point because they've been on puberty blockers since 12.
That's right.
So even their own arguments don't even work.
No, it
if the
doesn't.
argument is these kids need to be on puberty blockers because it saves them problems later, it seems to me you're trading off problems.
But what are the problems? So the problems are what they're trying to save these kids from is looking masculine or looking feminine.
Which why are looks being prioritized?
First off, look at us. Look at us. We didn't have puberty blockers.
No.
And I think you look pretty feminine.
Likewise,
and I think
the
I
other
look
edge.
pretty masculine.
Yeah.
So we're proof of the fact that we didn't take puberty blockers. We might have struggled a little bit. I struggled. No, but I don't. Here's what I don't understand. Struggle is not a bad thing. Now, I don't want some kid feeling suicidal and hating himself for the rest of
Right.
his life. That's different. But a little struggle with maybe having to wear a binder or having to figure out, is this the right space? Well, back in the day when I had to do it, I had to live male. Right, so I had to live as Buck for a year.
Oh, I remember. I've read about that. That
That's
in the
right.
past, you had to actually go live as
I
a
had to
gender
live
before
as-
you could medically transition to it.
That's
Wow.
right. So it's basically testing it out. It's a test drive. Do you get in a car and say, I'm buying it? No, you don't. You say, I want to test drive this car right now. I want to see how awesome it is. Actually, it's not the car I want. I want to go get a different car.
Wow.
So and I just changed my jacket. Instead of now I cut my breasts off, you're never coming back from that. You're not. You're not.
What I struggle with is not understanding how other people don't understand how morbid it is,
Yeah.
how insane it is
Yeah.
that we think a 12-year-old, and they'll comment saying it's not happening with 12-year-olds. Yes, it is.
Of
It's
course.
absolutely happening.
Yep.
At my plastic surgery clinic, I haven't talked about this on my channel yet, but at my clinic where I got my surgeries, I recently took my friend who is an adult to go get her surgeries. I was there as being support, and the front desk lady came up to me and she recognized me from the Joe Rogan podcast, and she's like, love your podcast. And she was also saying, which is crazy because she knows my views, why would she say this? But she said that due to the recent law in Texas, that she had to make a bunch of phone calls to kids and tell them they couldn't get their surgeries. And I'm like,
Okay.
well, kids meaning what? And she's like, well, I had to call a 14-year-old today, but then we had to cancel his double mastectomy. And then Sydney Watson, a YouTuber, called this same clinic and said, well, what's the youngest age? And she recorded it. It's on camera. Them saying 12 is the earliest age they give double mastectomies to. Which, first of all, do you even have
What?
breasts? at
You don't
12?
even have breasts. I mean,
what are
that-
they cutting off?
Yeah, what are they cutting off? And how is that affecting this child in the future? Why would you ever want to cut a child's? They're not even done growing. Puberty is actually the most important thing a human being can go through. Human being, I don't care what gender or what sex you are, it doesn't matter. Human beings need puberty. Your brain grows during puberty. So now we're going
Right.
to dumb everyone down?
Well, that's the thing. What sane? Oh my God, Buck! I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here, Buck.
It's so insane.
What sane human being thinks that a person will be healthy
That's right.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, pausing their development, canceling their development really,
Yep.
by 12? You are trapping a child in a child's mindset.
right.
And that's the kind of people we want running around? I don't think so.
Well, then I start to get all weird conspiracy, dude, right? And I'm like, is there like a bigger thing going on here?
There is.
There has to be. There has to be. There's a lot of money behind this because there's no way our tiny little teeny community can have as much power that it has to change laws to literally get our flag flown at the White House.
Yeah,
I'm like, what is
they
happening?
wouldn't give us this power unless they were using it
That's
for something
right.
else. And
That's
I
right.
I firmly believe that because y'all have to remember also that, I mean, and you can attest to this even more so than I can, but I grew up in an era where I grew up getting jumped
Yeah,
because
I'm
I was,
sorry.
you know, the feminine kid,
Yeah.
getting beat up. I had to learn how to fight. By 7 years old, I was swinging on high school kids. Like, it was crazy.
Wow.
And so I grew up in that era, and I'm like, how did we go from that to, if you don't support 12-year-olds removing their body parts, you are a bigot?
That's right.
And it's because I think whatever powers that be, and there are smarter people than me that can figure this out, whatever powers that be have recognized that they can give us this power and utilize it for something else, whether it's some form of eugenics, whether it's some form of, you know, sterilizing the population. I don't know.
That's
People
right.
don't people don't understand that you're sterilizing kids.
You're actually sterilizing kids. You're doing so much damage to a child that it just seems to me there has to be something more powerful involved here, which is what? Money. Money is always follow the money. It's an actual real thing. Money makes people do things.
Course, yeah.
And Lupron, which I have doing some research on, they had an actual major lawsuit, like I think it was 10 or 15 years ago, where they had to pay $825 million because they were giving Lupron to doctors and asking them and paying the doctors to promote Lupron when they knew what it was.
So
was
unethical.
And here they are again, doing it again. They're paying doctors. Do you know that Jack?
Oh, yeah.
Jack Turbin, I think his name is. He's a child doctor at Stanford, or not even a doctor, but I forgot exactly what his title is. But he's also very pro Lupron. And I did the research. He's getting paid by that company. He's gotten
Disgusting.
money from them to promote the product. He's actually a dangerous person. He's the guy who's really promoting puberty blockers for kids.
Well, then also look at the fact that just trans surgeries in general is becoming $1 billion industry.
That's right.
It's growing exponentially. It's exploding. And then, so what do? You expand your clientele. It's not just adults anymore. Now it's kids. And it's more kids than ever. And I'm sorry, there's no logical explanation for why gender dysphoria, which is something that was historically seen in young boys, has flipped. And you're seeing it in friend groups.
That's right.
You're seeing it in parents and children, which also makes me
It's disgusting.
that to me.
Yep.
I just did a video where I covered a YouTube vlog channel where the dad came out as trans, and a few months later the kid is now trans. He's 7.
Barf.
It's
Not real. That's not real.
of course not.
It's not real.
Of course not. But I struggle with getting so frustrated that people can't see it. It's people lose all their common sense because the minute you shroud something as being a civil rights issue,
That's right.
which in many respects it once was.
It once was, but it's not anymore.
Exactly, because I'm under no illusion that life has been historically easy for people like us.
Of course
I'm
not.
under no illusion that the right wing is our friend. I'm under no illusion there are not genuine struggles for trans people.
That's right.
But we're setting that aside to talk about a more pressing issue, which is these kids.
That's right.
Sterilizing
the
themselves.
Kids. I don't care what.
I don't
I'll
care
be
about
honest with you.
adults.
I don't.
I don't
Honestly,
care.
Blair, I do not. If you make a choice and you make a mistake, oh well, dude. You should have done your research and you should have figured it out. I have no problem with that. That's their situation. They're gonna have to figure it out. I will not let kids be put into our space and being told that if we don't do this, people are being lied to. Parents are being lied to. And I'll say it again. I'm a parent. If somebody said that to me, I would be like, if I wasn't trans, I'd be like, what? Oh my God, I would freak out. What do you mean? What do I do? Well, here, give your kid these medicine and your kid's gonna be all fine. Of course, a parent is gonna do that. They feel very vulnerable at that point and they wanna save their child. So everyone out there needs to understand what Blair and I are saying is this. We care about these kids. We don't want the kids to be shoved in a space that they're not supposed to be in. That's why there's a group of 28,000 detransition. These are all young kids.
Yeah. I did a conference over the weekend where I was debating trans issues on a panel, and the opposition to me stated something, well, it's kind of like back in the day, if someone thought they were gay but found out they weren't, there's no harm done because they thought they were gay but they're not. I'm like, how can you compare these?
You can't.
Being gay is one thing. Having irreversible surgeries and treatments is another.
That's a whole other space.
So he's right. The worst thing that happens if you think you're gay and you're not is, you thought you were gay for a year. The worst thing that happens if you think you're trans for even 6 months is you might have completely irreversible bodily damage.
Right.
And you likely will.
There's no comparison at all.
It's a different thing.
Totally different. That sexuality and gender are two different spaces. And our fight is different than the gay fight.
Yeah.
It is completely different. And you're right. So once a kid gets surgery and does all that, how are they going to come out of that? You don't think they're going to be depressed for the rest of their life? I deal with these kids. They cry to me all the time. I spend hours, on the phone with these kids because I feel on some level that it's my service to do that with these kids and they don't have anybody else to talk to. And I leave crying and how is this, it will actually make me cry right now because I just cannot believe that the world is letting this happen to young people who have everything in front of them right now and they won't have it because now they're going to be turned onto, oh my God, now I'm carved up. I can't have babies. I can't have sex. And I'm just like, oh my God, please wake up out there. Please, you have to hear what we're saying. We will be so screwed up. Our whole space, the trans world will be screwed up from this.
It's
gonna
got to be a
hurt us.
wrap on the trans.
It is. It's
about
going
to be
to.
a wrap.
That's right.
And that's what's so harmful because I think back to when I first realized that I was trans, right? I realized that I had to do something because this gender dysphoria has followed me my entire life. It wasn't going away. I tried to ignore it. I tried to put it into other things. I tried to compartmentalize it. It went nowhere. And the day that I realized, you know, I guess that means I have to transition. It meant so much to me that I was able to have resources to do that. It meant so much to me that there was a path, and that people like you set that path, and I can, you know, a roadmap vaguely that I could go down. And so this is all very real, the trans thing to us. Gender dysphoria, you know, transitioning, being trans, it's a very real thing. And it's not this political football to us like it is to everyone else. To all these other people, it's this issue that you can talk about being right or wrong or fundraising for or whatever. For us, this is our lives. And we're seeing our community being... People pretend as if we're fighting against trans people.
I know,
we're fighting against the community when we're sitting here screaming and begging for these people that are coming into the community to not fucking discredit
That's
it.
right.
Because it's real. And this is also where, like, you know, a lot of far right people don't like me because they think the entire concept of being trans is something that is illegitimate or constructed. No, it's not. Gender dysphoria is long studied, long documented, and we can talk about what the best measures for that are. But that conversation now has to come after the kid stuff.
That's right.
And the politicization of it.
That's right.
We can't even get to like what we can theoretically do about gender dysphoria in the future, possibly finding a cure.
Possibly.
No one even talks about that.
Nope, they don't.
You know,
They
everyone
do not.
talks about how transition is so faulty, which I agree that it is. It's not 100% thing. It's different for
That's right.
everyone, different results for everyone. Maybe someday there could be a cure to where you could take a medication and never have to have the need to transition.
That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
And then people say, oh, that means you're erasing trans people. Well, actually, that means you're erasing gender dysphoria, which
No,
is
it
very
means you want to
debilitating.
actually. I want to take. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be trans. I'll tell you right now. I didn't want to be a transsexual man. I want to be a man. I want to be born. I would have given everything to be born a man. This is not some. This is just a fix for the problem that I have. My disorder. I don't care. Anybody out there doesn't want to think of it as a mental disorder. I do. It's my disorder. What I feel. How I needed to fix it. But I wish to God I was born a guy. So today, what we have is trans identity. And that's the difference with me and possibly you. I don't identify as a trans person. That was never on the table for me.
Yeah, I just like am.
I
It's
just
not,
am.
it's not a,
Yeah.
I don't put it on my business card. It's literally just
That's
like,
right.
this is something that I do believe I was either born with or developed extremely early, prior to the point where I can remember anything, at the very least, followed me throughout my life, and I sought to fix it the way I figured out how to do.
That's right.
But it's become this other thing now, and it's just, there's going to be such a large pendulum effect. It's going to come down on people like you and I, and then they're going to be looking at us like, where were you
That's right.
when the 12-year-olds were getting their breasts cut off? And it's like, well, actually, I was right here talking about
Actually,
it.
that's what I say all the time. You know how people always say, well, where was everybody when these little kids were getting raped, right? Nobody was speaking up. Actually, we are speaking up. And I say it all the time. I'm going to be on the right side when this actually explodes. And I'm going to be on the side that said, well, Buck and Blair were speaking up about this, but no one seems to, but they're listening, Blair. They are. I really do see people coming around now and understanding when you start putting children in a space of medical, these kids will be medicalized for the rest of their lives.
That's so important to state, because what people don't understand is like, everyone that's not trans has no idea what transitioning really is, or what hormones really are, what they really do, what they don't do. We are on hormones forever.
Forever.
We're not on hormones for the year of our transition story. Like, I feel like, because I did a video where I chronicled my surgeries and stuff, and I think people think that period was like my transition period and now I'm good.
That's right.
No, you're on medication forever. So again, what sane person thinks a 12-year-old can decide to be on medication forever? I don't fucking know.
They're not sane. That's the problem. Who's ever running this show, they're complete wingnut crazy people who want to. Here's the deal. I want to coexist in the world. I want to be part of the world. I transition to be a man and live in the world. These people want to dominate space. They want to take over women's space. They want to come in and say people with uteruses, people with whatever. That's not fair, and that's not okay, because people don't have uteruses. Women have uteruses. Trans men can have a uterus. But when we start wiping out language in order for trans people to feel comfortable in the world, that is insane, and I will not be part of that.
It used to be, it would kind of be like me, like moving to China and then being like, actually, y'all have to do things like America. It's like, no, trans people, and I don't understand why the virtue of like being humble is
Right.
so gone now.
That's right.
But like trans people, I feel like do need to be humble enough in the sense of like we are something that is rare. We
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
are something that's unique. We have to learn how to coexist in the world, not dominate the world and change it to our whims.
That's
because
right.
it doesn't even make sense.
No.
And it's going down.
That's right. And when you're honest, oh my God, people love you because you're honest. People love me because I'm honest. Most of the people that come to me, watch me, are all cisgender, which I actually even hate that word and I don't use it. But that being said, the people who come to me are not trans and not LGBT. They're like, oh, Buck, you're just a normal dude. That's all I want the world to see, that people like us just want to get back into the world, deal with our stuff, and move forward and become doctors, lawyers, YouTubers, whatever the heck we want to be.
Don't become a YouTuber. You don't want to be a YouTuber, but trust me.
I love you.
Listen, this has been amazing, Buck. We're gonna film another thing that's really special
Right on.
here after this, but
right on. Yeah.
you know, this conversation needs to be happening. Thank
That's
you so
right.
much for coming on.
I appreciate you a lot. Thank you for putting us out there.
Guys, make sure you subscribe to this channel as well as my second channel. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Follow Buck on all his social media. It'll be on the screen here. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.